This is the book of Acts, chapter 17, verse 19. So they took Paul, brought him before the city council of the Aggregation, and said, "We would like to know what this new teaching is about you are talking about. Some of the things we heard you say sound strange to us, and we would like to know what they mean." I like to give all glory and praises and honor to Almighty Yahweh Bahashem Yahushai. I like to give all praises and honor and glory to Almighty Yahweh Bahashem Yahushai. Double honors to the men of GMS who rule well. Peace and salutation to the hopeful elect. This is Brother Boaz on the set once again. This strange new teaching is the doctrine of GMS, that sect, if you will, that came out of Harlem underneath the ISUBK, REI, Jacob, and High Priest Masha, which is King David. They have it, okay? You heard me say this on numerous occasions, okay? They have it. They cracked the riddle, okay? They have the truth. Okay, that's what this lesson is going to go into today. Okay, all these other camps, they have holes in their doctrines, and that's why they fall apart. Okay, GMS is still intact. Okay, and you see Tahar, he's still going out on the street corners teaching. Okay, they did something that all the other camps and groups could not do. Okay, they cracked the riddle. They did it, and you do well if you go underneath that teaching, okay, underneath that doctrine, okay. So what they saying, okay, they're saying Yahweh is God, okay. So what they're saying is Yahweh is a supreme God. What they saying, Yahweh Shai is his only begotten son, okay. What they saying, so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native American Indians are Israelites, okay. What they saying, the so-called white man is going to get eradicated and destroyed and put straight into slavery. Not just that, all the other nations, okay, of the Gentiles, they're going to get put into slavery in the kingdom of heaven in this new age that's coming up, okay. The book of Acts, chapter 5, we'll start at verse 34. But one of them, a Pharisee named Galimedo, who was a teacher of the law, was highly respected by all the people, stood up in the council. He ordered the apostle to be taken out for a while, and then he said to the council, "Fellow Israelites, be careful what you do to these men. You remember that through this appeared some time ago, claiming to be somebody great, great, and about 400 men joined under him. But he was killed, and all his followers were scattered, and his movement died out. After that, Judas, the Galilean, appeared during the time of the census and drew a crowd after him, but he was also killed, and his followers were scattered. And so those and so in this case, I tell you, do not take any action against these men. Leave them alone. If what they say have planned and done of a human origin, it will disappear. But if it comes from Yahweh, you cannot possibly defeat them. You could find yourself fighting against Yahweh. Okay, so They have it, okay? So you fighting against them, you're fighting against Yahweh, okay? All these people that, all these keyboard warriors that take shots at GMS, they don't know it, okay? They're going to get eradicated when this thing goes down, okay? They're going to be destroyed, okay? That's why the best thing you could do now is to get it while you can, okay? While the doors of mercy are still open, okay? They got the 100% the truth, okay? They did it. They did something that no one else could do, okay? The book of Daniel. The book of Daniel, chapter 2, verse 18. He told them to pray to Yahweh, the power of heaven, for mercy and to ask him to explain the mystery to them so that they would not be killed along with the others advisors in Babylon. Okay, so Daniel prayed to Yahweh in order not to be killed. That's what this thing is about. You have to crack the riddle. The game is here. You have to crack the riddle before sundown, okay? You have to get the riddle, okay? What's sweeter than honey, okay? The book of Judges, okay? We're dealing with Samson, okay? You have to get the riddle before sundown. If you don't get the riddle before sundown, you will be eradicated when this thing goes off, okay? And GMS, they're the only ones that's pushing the RFID chip microchip, okay? The mark of the beast, okay? They will come out with that demonic device. And when they do, if you take that device, you heard me say this on numerous of my videos on different subjects, you will get eradicated here in America, okay? You will be destroyed, okay? That's why you have to get the right doctrine while you still can, okay? Other Israelite camps, okay, in groups, they talking about is sleeping with white women. They talking about is sin, okay? The mark of the beast. No, the mark of the beast is an RFID chip, which they already have ready. They just waited for a black swan event to come and to implant that in the chip the population, okay? That's what they want to do. That's the plan, okay? That's where this is all leading to, okay? A RFID chip, microchip device planted underneath the skin of your left hand or your forehead or Neuralink, okay? Once again, you heard me say this again, and I will continue to say GMS out of all these camps and out of all of them, GLCC, ISUBK, okay, the new ISUBK, they have it underneath REI, okay, King Masha and Jacob, okay. Now the new leader is Tehar, okay. They have it. They did it. I know they use rude speech at times. I know they come off vulgar at times, but that's talking about if I be rude in speech, not in knowledge. The book of Daniel, chapter 2, verse 19. Then the same night the mystery was revealed to Daniel in a vision, and he praised the power of heaven. Yahweh is wise and powerful. Praise him forever and ever. He controls the times and the seasons. He makes and unmakes kings. It is he who gives wisdom and understanding. He reveals things that are deep and secret. Okay, so Yahweh Shai, okay, he reveals the deep and secret things, okay? So once again, it's that doctrine of GMS, okay, that we have this doctrine now so we can make it out of here with our life, okay? You got to have your garment, okay? So if you don't have your garment, you won't be cast into outer darkness where there be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Okay, you gotta have your garment. The garment is this truth. Okay, you have many Israelite camps and groups out there. They took a bribe. Okay, they took a bribe. They don't. They're not teaching you the truth. They're not teach. They're not telling you. Okay, and some of them are even teaching a so-called white man could be saved. Some of them are even teaching that. Okay, the so-called white man's going down. Okay, he's going to get eradicated and put into slavery. Okay, that's his destiny. Okay, you can't save this devil. What if somebody didn't believe? Book of Romans chapter 3 verse 3. Does that make the truth none effect? Yahweh forbid, okay? Let all human beings be a liar. Okay, the so-called white man, in order for this to go down, in order for this Bible to be true, he has to go down. He's the last ruler of the Gentile rulers, okay? So in order for this Bible to come to pass, the so-called white man has to fall out of power and rulership. The book of Daniel chapter 2 verse 22. He reveals things that are deep and secret. He knows what is hidden in darkness, and he himself is surrounded by light. Praise you and honor you, Yahweh of the power of my ancestors. You have given me wisdom and strength. You have answered my prayer and show us what to tell the king. Okay, so they have it. They have it. Okay, they cracked the riddle. They did something that no other Israelite camp and group could not do, okay, to crack the riddle of this Bible, okay, which no one knew, okay. When I was growing up, everybody wanted to know about what was the Bible, okay. The Bible is talking about the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native American Indians are biblical true Israelites. That they are true Israelites. What is the Bible saying? The so-called white man is going to get eradicated. He's going to be destroyed. He's going to lose in World War III, and they're going to drop missiles on this man, okay? What is it saying? The other nations, including the so-called white man, is going straight into slavery, okay? That's what this doctrine is. That's why no one likes GMS. Okay, because they come out with the truth, they say it, and they don't bite their tongue. Okay, all the other Israelite camps and groups, they took bribes. A gift destroys the heart. The book of Daniel, chapter 2, verse 28. But there is a power in heaven who reveals mysteries. He has informed your majesty what will happen in the future. Now I will tell you the dream, the vision you had while you were asleep, okay? They have the dark sayings of these scriptures, okay? They're what they saying. Let's go to the book of Daniel, chapter 7. The book of Daniel, chapter 7, verse 11. While I was looking, I was still heard the little horn bragging and boasting. As I watched, the fourth beast was killed, and its body was thrown into the flame and destroyed. Okay, he was destroyed. Okay, the so-called white man, how he fell out of power was with thermonuclear weapons, okay, detonated and destroying the bosom of destruction, okay, upon America, okay. That's how America was eradicated. The Bible is saying the same thing over and over and over again in different passages in scripture, okay. The prophets are all explaining a thermonuclear strike hitting America, making it desolate, and putting the rest of the nations into slavery. That's what this Bible is conveying, and that's what this is about, okay? And you have to hurry up once again before evening time comes. The book of Matthews. The book of Matthew, chapter 20, verse 8. When evening came, the owner of the floorman called the workers and paid them their wages, starting with those who were hired last and ending with those who were first. Okay, so the evening came, thermonuclear destruction came. Okay, and if you don't have your oil in your lamp, you won't make it out with your life when this thing goes down, okay? GMS, they got it. Once again, you heard me say this again. They cracked the riddle, okay? They didn't take a bribe. You don't see Tahar you don't see him took a bribe, okay? Tahar still standing 10 toes down and still preaching the gospel, okay? After 40 years, 40 odd years, okay? That takes integrity, okay? And if you don't have the integrity and the posture, you won't make it out with your life when this thing goes down, okay? Yahweh, like we discussed on numerous occasions, he will test you, okay? You will have to go through your tribulations and your trials. You have to go through your tribulations. That's what this is about, okay? That's what this is about. You have to go through your tribulations. Let's get it. The book of Hebrews, chapter 10, verse 34. You shared the suffering of the prisoners, and when all your belongings were seized, you endured your losses gladly because you knew that you still possessed something much better, which will last forever. Okay, so basically you have to endure your tribulations and your trials and tribulation. The whole doctrine is talking about suffering, okay? You have to suffer, okay? That's what this is about, okay? You're not going to be able to have a sit down kingdom and say, okay, that's it. You have to go through your tribulations and you have to hold on, okay, and keep your posture and keep your integrity. That's what this is about. The book of Proverbs. The book of Proverbs, chapter 11, chapter Salakia, chapter 3, verse 5. Trust in Yahweh with all your heart. Never rely on what you think you know. Remember Yahweh in everything you do, and he will show you the right way, okay? The book of Proverbs, chapter 11, verse 3. If you are good, you are guided by honesty, but people who can't be trusted are destroyed by their own dishonesty. Okay, so if you are good, you're gonna be basically having integrity. Okay, you have to have the integrity to make it out with your life. Yahweh Shai is not beaming out no niggas out of here. That's why you have to go through your tribulations and your trials. Okay, that's what this thing is about. The book of Proverbs, chapter 11, verse 6. Righteousness rescued those who are honest, but those who can't be trusted are trapped by their own greed, okay? So you have to be honest and you have to have integrity if you want to make it out with your life when this thing goes down, okay? That's what this thing is about, okay? Making it out of here with your life when this thing goes down, okay? And you have to have the right doctrine, okay? You have to have the names, okay? So don't let anyone tell you that the names are not important, okay? The names are extremely important, okay? The names are extremely important. Turn to the book of Isaiah. I'll write these scriptures down. The book of Isaiah, chapter 30, verse 19. You people who lives in Jerusalem will not weep and anymore. Yahweh is compassionate, and when you cry to him for help, he will answer you. Yahweh will make you go through hard times, but he himself will be there to teach you, and you will not have to search for him anymore, okay? So what's that saying? GLMS, okay? They got it. They got it. They did it. Your Eureka. Okay, out of all these Israelite camps and groups, out of all these religions, okay, they cracked the riddle. They telling you what this Bible is conveying, okay? A thermonuclear strike hit in America, and America's going straight into slavery, okay? The last little bits of, there won't be no survivors here in America. There won't be no survivors here in America. It's gonna be annihilated, obliterated, if you will. Okay, that's what this is about. And coming back to Yahweh Shai. The book of Isaiah, chapter 55, verse 7. Let the wicked leave their way of life and change their way of thinking. Let them turn to Yahweh our power. He is merciful and quick to forgive. Okay, so Yahweh Shai is quick to forgive. Okay, he's quick to forgive. Okay, Yahweh Shai said he is going to raise us up in the last day. The book of John, chapter 6, verse 39. And it is the will of him who sent me that I should not lose any of those he has given me, but that I should raise them all to life on the last day. Okay, this is the last day. Okay, Yahweh Shai is raising us up on the last day, be waking us up, if you will. Okay, it's time to wake up. It's time to wake up. Okay, and you will go through your trials and you will go through your tribulations. Okay, this doctrine is based on suffering. Okay, you gotta suffer. For what my Father wants is that all who sees the Son and believes in him should have eternal life, and I will raise them up to life on the last day, okay? Verse 44, people cannot come to me unless the Father who sent me draws them to me, and I will raise them to life on the last day. Okay, so Yahweh promised that he's going to wake us up. Okay, this is a time to wake up, and this is a time for you to come into who you are, your nationality of who you are, while you still can, okay? While the doors of mercy are still open. That's what this is about, okay? That's what this is all about. Okay, so one moment. The book of Acts. The book of Acts, chapter 2, verse 21. And then whosoever calls out to Yahweh for help will be saved. Okay, so you gotta have the name. Okay, how are you gonna call out to him if you don't have the name? Okay, how are you gonna do that? Okay, how are you gonna call out to Yahweh Yahushai if you don't have the name? Okay, it's a game. All these other Israelite camps saying we don't got the name, and you can call them your play yogurt. They're gonna have to give. They're gonna have to every idle word they're going to have to confess, okay? Every by your words you will be judged. The book of Matthew chapter 12 verse 36. You can be sure that on the judgment day you will have to give account of every useless word you have ever spoken. Your words will be used to judge you, to declare you either innocent or guilty. Okay, so it's using your words. Okay, it's using your words. That's how you're gonna make it out of here with your life when this thing goes down. Okay, it's all about your words. Okay, and all these other camps are saying once again that we don't have the name. Okay, that's not true. We have the name. Okay, that's why the 144,000. Let's get it. The 144,000 has their father's name written on their foreheads. Okay. The book of Revelation, chapter 14, verse 1. Then I looked, and there was a lamb standing on Mount Zion. With him were 144,000 people who had his name and his father's name written on their forehead. So you have to have the name, okay? If you don't have the name, you will not make it out with your life when this thing goes down. The name is crucial, okay? I will repeat. If you don't have the name, you will not make it out with your life when this thing goes down, okay? Or the ones that do, those are the ones that Yahweh is just going to have mercy on and beam up out of here, okay? So the names are critically important, okay? Don't let people deceive you by saying the names are not important, okay? The name is critical, okay, for you to make it out with your life when this thing goes down. You have to think about it. They have the name over 6,000 times in the Bible, okay? And the name Jesus is obviously a lot in the Bible. Why would they take out the names of the Father and the Son, okay, and change Yahweh to Jesus? Why would they do that? Okay, that takes a lot of planning and a lot of cunning skill to do something like that, and money to do something like that. Why did they didn't give us the names? Okay, because the name is important. Okay, they did it to keep you from your salvation. Okay, the names, when you plug those names in the Bible comes to life. Okay, the scriptures are revealed when you plug those names out. When you plug those names in the scriptures, okay, the scriptures become revealed. Okay, that's what this is about. The book of Acts. The book of Acts, chapter 17, verse 11. The people there were more open minded than the people in Thessalonica. They listened to the message with great eagerness, and every day they studied the scriptures to see if what Paul said was really true. Many of them believed, and many Greek women of high social standing and many Greek men also believed. Okay, so many, you got to study this message every day. Okay, try to find a way in your daily chores, okay, to get this message in. Okay, to study and do your research. Okay, just don't go on a minute GMS. Fact check it. Okay, study it, fact check it. Okay, what they saying is if it's false or not. Okay, that's why a lot of groups, they don't like GMS and they come hard against GMS, okay? But that means they got it, okay? That's what that means. The book of Luke, chapter 6, verse 20. Yahweh looked at his disciples and said, happy are the poor, the kingdom of Yahweh is yours. Happy are you who are hungry now, you will be filled. Happy are you who weep now, you will laugh. So we're weeping right now, okay? We're in tears right now, okay? We we're not accepted in this society. Happy are you when the people hate you and reject you and insult you and say that you are evil, all because of the Son of Man. And that's what they say about GMS, okay? They always come hard against GMS, okay? They always do, okay? So that's giving you a clue who got it, okay? They're the most talked about hated Israelite group, okay? Because they rebuke. They don't just let you go off in the scriptures. If you go off, they got a video for you, okay? They rebuke. They even rebuke themselves, okay, when they go off. Verse 23. Be glad when this happens and dance for joy, because a great reward is kept for you in heaven. For their ancestors did the very same thing to the prophets. But now, but how terrible for you who are rich, all these Israelite camps that got a lot of money, okay? How terrible it is for you, okay? That's why the scripture said, weep and howl, okay? How terrible it is for you. But how terrible for you who are rich now. You have had your life, your easy life. How terrible for you who are full now. You will go hungry. How terrible for you who laugh now. You will mourn and weep. How terrible when all people speak well of you. Their ancestors said the very same thing about the false prophets. So yeah, they said the very same thing about the prophets. Okay, if you that's Israel don't want to know righteous things. Okay, they want you to prophesy deceit. The book of Isaiah, chapter 30, verse 10. Tell the people, tell the prophets to keep quiet, they say. Don't talk to us about what is right. Tell us what we want to hear. Let us keep our illusions. Get out of our way and stop blocking our path. We don't want to hear about your holy power of Israel, okay? So our people are rebellious, okay? Our people don't want to hear about Yahweh, Yahweh Shai, okay? That's why it goes deaf, okay? They they stop their ears and they cover their eyes. They don't want to hear about Yahweh, Yahweh Shai, okay? Our rebellious people. As a result, that's why 2/3 is going to get eradicated in this thing when this thing goes down, okay? You don't want to hear about Yahweh, Yahweh Shai. Yahweh Shai ain't going to want to hear about you on that day, okay? You're going to get eradicated on the day of the Lord, okay? With the so-called white man, okay? You're going to get eradicated with him as well, okay? You have to come back into who you are, your nationality, okay? That's what this is about, okay? And go to your suffering and your tribulations, okay? That's what this thing is all about. The book of Ecclesiasticus, or Ecclesiastes. The book of Ecclesiastes 7, verse 7. You may be wise, but if you cheat someone, you are acting like a fool. If you take a bribe, you ruin your character. And all these Israelite groups, they took these 501c3 charters, okay? The preaching what is false, okay? They know what they're doing. They're not teaching a name, okay? And they get paid not to teach a name, okay? They're going to get eradicated in this thing when this thing goes down, okay? The book of Ezekiel. The book of Ezekiel, chapter 14, verse 9. If any prophets are deceived into giving a false answer, it is because I, Yahweh, have deceived them. I will remove them from the people of Israel, both prophets and anyone who consults them will get the same punishment. Okay, so all these Israelite camps and groups, okay, that are basically deceiving the people and all the other and their members, they're going to get punished. Now, when this mark of the beast comes in, when they implement that, you're going to have a large fluctuation of members of GMS. Okay, they're going to finally come in. Okay, because these other Israelite camps and groups are not warning them. They're not warning the flock about these about this prophecy. Okay, that's the last major prophecy until we have Yahweh Shai come. Okay, and Yahweh Shai is going to come like a thief in the night. That's the last prophecy that we have. Okay, so when they implement this mark of the beast, which they will do, you're going to see a lot of their members flow into GMS, flock into GMS. Okay, because they got it. They did it. The book of Proverbs. The book of Proverbs 1, chapter 1, verse 2. Here are the proverbs that will help you recognize wisdom and good advice and understand saying what is the deep meanings. The book of Proverbs, chapter 1, verse 5. These proverbs can even add to the knowledge of the wise and give guidance to the educated so that they can understand the hidden meanings of the proverbs and the problems that the wise raise. Okay, so you can understand what the problems are, what the wise raise. Okay, riddles. Okay, they crack this thing down. Okay, they're the ones that came out with the so-called white man being Esau. Okay, to my understanding, they cracked that down. They pushed that heavy. Okay, that's a major clue of the Bible. Who will be ruling at the end of the age? The book of Sirach, chapter 39, verse 1. But he that giveth his mind to the law of the Most High and is occupied in the meditation thereof will seek out the wisdom of the ancients and will be occupied in prophecy. So we have to be occupied into prophecy. Okay, we have to be occupied in prophecy. And GMS, they're the only group that really goes into prophecy. Okay, they bring out scriptures like Esau is the end of the world and Jacob is the one that follows. Okay, the book of Second Ezra, chapter 6, verse 7. They bring out scriptures like this. Okay, you don't hear all the other camps bringing out these scriptures. Then answered I and said, what shall be the parting sunder of the times, or when shall the end of the first and the beginning of that follows? He said unto me, from Abraham unto Isaac, when Jacob and Esau were born unto him, Jacob's hand held first the heel of Esau, for Esau is the end of the world, and Jacob is the beginning of it that followeth. Okay, so that's what this is about. Okay, they bring out those scriptures. The book of Revelations. The book of Revelations, chapter 19, verse 10. I fell down at his feet to worship him, but he answered to me, don't do it. I am a servant together with you and with others believers, all those who hold to the truth that Yahweh is revealed worship power, okay? Okay, they bring out these scriptures, okay? Yahweh is a spirit of prophecy, okay? So you have to have your mind on prophecy, okay, and what's coming. Okay, that's what this is about. The book of Acts. They they have the doctrine of salvation. The book of Acts, chapter 18, verse 24. At that time, a Jew named Apollos, who had been born in Alexandria, came to Ephesus. He was an eloquent speaker and had a thorough knowledge of the scriptures. He had been instructive in the way of the Lord, and with great enthusiasm, he proclaimed and taught correctly the fact that Yahushai, about Yahushai. However, he knew only the baptism of John. He began to speak boldly in the synagogues. When Priscilla and Aquila heard him, they took him home with them and explain to him more correctly the way of power, okay? The way of Yahweh, okay? So you have to have enthusiasm, okay? Enthusiastics over this thing, if you will. You have to have that boldness and courage, okay? So you can make it out of this thing with your life when this thing goes down. That's what this thing is about. And hopefully you was edified. I like to give all praises and glory and honor to Almighty Yahweh, Yahweh Shai, Shalom.